Hi there, IB Geography students. So these are your notes about national sports leagues. This is going to be a combination of note-taking and some online activities that you need to complete. So as we go through, you're going to do a lot of pausing, going to look some other things up, filling some things in on your notes, and then coming back to this video. So let's start with some terms and definitions. You have these on your note sheet. There's actually nothing that you need to write down here, but please review these so you know what we're talking about before you get started. The difference between a sports league, a league system, and a sports division is going to be really important when we talk about leisure hierarchy, which is what your internal assessment is going to be about. So we need to make sure we understand these distinctions. Okay, before you go through the notes, take a moment. If we were doing this in class, 7 minutes is the guideline. You do it at your tables, but do it by yourself for as long as it's fun or interesting to come up with as many teams as you can on this list for each of the sports leagues in the United States. So pause the video, brainstorm. How many teams do you know from each category? Go. Okay, now that you have listed the teams, take a moment again, pause the video, and you can do this one of two ways. You can use your knowledge that's already in your head to mark right here on this handy map where all of these teams are. The other thing that you can do is use your computer or phone to look up the location. If there is more than one professional sports team per city, please put more than one dot in that city because that information is going to be relevant and important later. Okay, so if we were in class together, we would put this up on the board as it is. Please, look at this map. If this is helpful, use it. Otherwise, move on. Okay, so by far the most popular, both by numbers of attendance, television figures, money spent, sport in the United States is football. If we look at these different markets, we can see that there are a small number of locations in North America where the non-football team is more popular. We see the Atlanta Braves, the Red Sox, the Yankees. For basketball, the Bulls, the Suns, and then for hockey, only the Red Wings are more popular than the football team in the same market. So, when we look at this distribution of sports teams in the U.S., think to yourself for a moment about what factors contribute to where these sports teams are. If I am the manager of the NFL, the commissioner, of the NFL, and DC wants a football team, let's pretend there isn't one here, and DC wants a football team, how am I going to decide whether or not that city should have a football team? What are the advantages and disadvantages of putting a football team in DC or somewhere else? The Nationals are actually a good example of this locally. It took years of work to get a professional baseball team back to DC. Why would we put teams in new markets? On the rare occasions when new teams are created to join leagues, how does that happen? Take a moment to think about what factors would contribute to where those teams show up and mark that down in the appropriate place on your note sheet. So this map that you have below on your notes shows MLB expansion. It shows where teams have moved over time, and if you look closely, it gives you the dates for when they moved there. So we can see the Nationals, DC here is in its 10th year. Previously, the Senators were here. These other lists here are teams that used to be in these locations, okay? The Senators became the Twins, for what that's worth. If we follow this line, you can see that. A nice example of expansion here is the teams over here in California. So we had the Dodgers who moved out from Brooklyn at the same time around that both the Giants and the A's were founded. When that move happened, the people in charge of it understood that you weren't going to have a team that people cared about without local competition. So having one team on the West Coast wasn't going to do anybody good. You needed to have multiple teams who could be in direct competition with each other so that fans would be interested in the games. Okay, so baseball. The MLB was founded in the late 1800s. Baseball is now known as the U.S. national pastime and for a long time was the most popular spectator sport in the U.S. Take a moment to write some things about that on the side of your notes, but do make sure that you leave room to fill in this pyramid with some important information. Okay. Let's look at the hierarchy of baseball in the U.S. So, excuse me. This is where we get into what's going to be super relevant for your internal assessment. Okay, starting at the top, we have Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball is a national and international endeavor, right? Technically, we have international play in Major League Baseball, and then MLB teams do go and play exhibition games against other teams in other countries. At the minor league level, we're looking at regional and national competition. When we move down to the college level, we look at regional and national competition, right? College divisions are sometimes regional, now are also largely based on money for football, so that's a whole other deal. But they used to be regional, now they tend to be national. And there's national competition at the end of those seasons. Then we have high school baseball, little leagues, which would include travel leagues, so they could be local and regional as well. And then we can get even further down into that to t-ball. So this is my hierarchy of baseball. At the bottom of my hierarchy, I have local play. I move up through both skill in the case of sport and who is involved. We could also look at this in terms of money, right? Less money up to more money. So this is a continuum of money, both money spent by the teams and money spent in order to go and view the games and money spent at games, okay? So if we look at this economically, we're moving up this continuum. We'll talk about how this relates to your internal assessment when we see each other in class. Okay, so let's look at the hierarchy for the nationals and add these examples, at least a couple of them, to your note sheet. So on the hierarchy that you just drew, right on this pyramid, these are all going to be minor league teams, except for the Nats, which would go at the top of the pyramid. But these are the teams that feed into the nationals. They are part of their own hierarchy. And we can see that they are all part of the same region, right? We're all here in this Mid-Atlantic and Northeast region. There are no national feeder teams in Washington State, for example. Okay, here are the locations of all of the teams in Major League Baseball. What I'd like you to take a minute to do is to pick 2 or 3 and to draw the area that you think they draw fans from around those teams. So pause the video for a second and take care of that. So let's look at where these teams actually are. Pick a couple of these locations and label what team you think these regions are fans of. You have this map immediately below the map we just looked at is the one that's here. Okay, so here is the key that goes along with this. You're probably going to want to use the numbers to help you to find if you labeled yours correctly or not. If there's anything on here that is odd to you or that jumps out as interesting, one thing that I always look at is up here. If we look at number 2, right, these are the Chicago Cubs. And then if we look down here, oh, my cursor keeps disappearing on my screen. If we look down here from the Cubs, we see we have this other patch of Cubs fans immediately to the south, but in between those are broken up by Kansas City fans. So not everything is continuous we do have pockets here and there of fans for other teams. Here is another fan map. This shows you some more larger, I think clearer groupings. Out here we don't have enough data in the West to locate those teams in particular. And then again, here is one more version of this map. And this is from a website called Common Census where people can go and input this information voluntarily. So this is not super accurate data. It's just kind of interesting to look at. Take a moment to write some observations about these maps on the side here. And then we have some Facebook fan data. So when Facebook aggregates all of the data about who likes which teams, this is what comes up. Again, these gray areas are data lists, this very light area out here, right? This is where there's not data. And then here we have fan Facebook data pulled from opening day 2014 by county in the country. If you're looking for these maps in your notes, they're not there, but you should write some things about them in your notes, your observations. Okay, so the Major League Baseball is divided into two leagues, the American and National League, which are then divided up into divisions. In the playoff games, we have division champions who go on to play in a league championship and then go on to play in the World Series. We have 3 division champions and a wild card team who play against each other. There's been some change to that structure this year where there was a playoff to determine who was going to be the 4th team. Then we have the World Series. I don't know if any of you guys watched the Mets implode the other night. It was pretty hard to see. Like, it hurt me right here. Okay. We have here a championship history. This is in your notes as well. We can see where the winningest teams are. The Yankees have by far the most World Series wins. If you're a Yankees fan, that, I don't know, that's like sad. Okay, so if we look at this data in another way, here it is, same data, different method of looking. We got to this point here with your Mets and Yankees assignment, so we're not going to spend too much time thinking about team characteristics now. Okay, some other interesting things. This is cost data. What does it cost to buy 4 tickets, small sodas, hot dogs, and then 2 hats, small beers, programs, and parking at each of these ballparks? So this is another way to consider who can access these games, who is paying attention to them. The Nationals are right here. Here's the playoff teams, okay, looking at money, looking at how much they're paying players. Take a moment here. This is all stuff you can write down what you see, patterns in this data, please, at the bottom of your note sheet. Here's how much an ounce of beer costs in each of these stadiums, just because I think it's interesting. Nationals are actually not at the top. And that's it, okay? We are done. Thank you very much for watching this video and taking your notes. I should put my webcam over that. Can I smash my own head? Here we go. Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.